We're live. Go ahead, Isabel. We're live.
Hello, everybody. I am so happy to be with you and to have this fantastic opportunity to discuss together about the impact of art on health. As a public health expert and artist in World Health Organization promoting the initiative Art Impact for Health, I thank specifically my Director General, Dr. Tedros, to support and invest on innovation and inspirational leadership, including this very inspiring initiative, Art Impact for Health. Inspiration can come from anywhere, and you are, all of you, my inspiration. We will discover that in few time. We have started this amazing consortium of partners last year during the art exhibit in United Nations Palais on the importance of art and culture to foster the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals, and specifically SDG3 about health, and specifically a thanks to WHIS and UNGSII. And now our partner Ashoka as well have rejoined us, and it is such a pleasure. I would like to thank all the Akusha fellows and their respective networks today to join our global creative design movement, a social movement to promote the use of art and culture as a key determinant of well-being, but as well to go through our ability to trigger our resilience pathway and a way to prevent illness. Thank you, Howard and Garrett, to be together to start this first webinar about the importance of art to provide social support and inclusiveness in practice to reach health for all, specifically the main target of WHO. Through this process of exploration and discovery of your respective art initiative you will present today, I have realized how creative attitude and approach converge to form a coherent movement that has knock-on effect around the world. We will discover how your art initiative can inspire worldwide art and design movements of different size and significance for the communities and beneficiaries you are targeted. Some centered of the style of or approach of a particular collective or artist in particular place, others spanning many creative disciplines and much more organic in terms of expression and interpretation. Now I give you the floor to present yourself and your initiative, and thanks again to be with us today. And I would like to first start with, in fact, Steve Leaflor from Canada and US in the same time, and I give you the floor.
Thank you for having me. I'm going to talk a bit about who I am and what we do. We're called Blueprint for Life, and for about the past 15 years, we've been working in remote fly-in Indigenous communities, so First Nations and Inuit communities in Canada. A lot of work in the high Arctic with the Inuit, and I'm an old school street dancer, and so it's a deeply personal story about who we are and what we do. I know I probably don't look like it now, but I'm 62, but you know, even when I was 55, I was still able to do backflips and do a lot of spinning on my back. So I'm a b-boy, a breaker, and in a short history, I developed the program based on the healing that hip hop provided in my own personal life. So in the early days, I used to go to the South Bronx and hang out with a lot of the originators in hip hop, and you know, I was severely bullied when I was a kid. When I was 15, I was tiny. I was put in big garbage cans in front of the entire school and laughed at. So without going into many things, suffice to say, I had an incredible anger and incredible trauma. And really, street dancing was a way that I reclaimed who I was as a person, and it enabled me to kind of bring back my confidence that I was somebody that had a good spirit and had something to give. So when we do our programs, maybe we'll pull up the first picture. This is a photo that we'll see. Gareth, if you can grab that. The first picture in my photos. So this is me when I was 50 years old, and that's kind of like a rollback. You can grab your ankle and you try to go up and you try to hold a freeze in the air. And I can't do that anymore. But back in the day, we were quite famous. We opened for James Brown, Ice-T, George Clinton, Grandmaster Flash, Black Eyed Peas, so lots of legends in hip hop. So I have, I guess, what you would say, old school stripes. And so we use this. I would bring a lot of Canada's top hip hop community to the high Arctic. And it wasn't about how good they were as artists. It was about our ability of sharing our passion for life and our art forms. So we would become the entire school for a week, maybe work with 100 Inuit youth, and the teachers would have to equally participate with the students. I got a whole idea about retraining the adult brain on how we forget what it's like to be spontaneous and creative. And we not only use hip hop and spoken word and meditation and graffiti art, but we very importantly use traditional culture blended with it so that they can feel like they're superstars with their own culture and reclaim some healing from trauma using their own culture. So we would use traditional drums. We would use throat singing with beatbox. We would use Arctic games. We would have elders telling stories and legends. And so in between all this activity, you can imagine it's an intense week and we're always changing things up. What we would also do is then we would calm the mind and we would have discussions on the trauma in their lives. So when we're so it's kind of a week intensive group therapy. And we would talk about bullying and addictions and creating safety plans and healing from sexual abuse. And so by the time we get through the entire week, the trust builds in a very deep personal level with our team. There might be 10 of us working with a team with 100 youth, and that we can have some of the most candid conversations by the time we get to Friday, the last day, about sexual abuse and healing. And the feedback we get is that it's some of the most powerful experiences that young people have ever held. And then, of course, we end it with a community feast. They often bring in whale and caribou and bear, and we have this big celebration while we put on a big show, and the whole community comes out. So imagine a tiny Arctic village where the entire community comes out to support their kids, who they love very much, but there's a lot of trauma because of history of colonialism and history of residential schools. So that's a good picture to show. So there's us up in the Arctic working with a ton of kids doing the warm up. I think that one's in Arctic Bay. Maybe the next one. So this would be in a Cree community up around James Bay, and this would be a traditional buffalo drum, and they would be singing their songs. We've also done a lot of work in prisons. We've done more group therapy work in prisons in Canada than in the history of our nation's corrections. And I'm super proud of that because, we have a lot of Indigenous youth locked up, and a lot of them are gang involved, and it's difficult to reach these youth. This is throat singing in the Arctic. And so throat singing is an ancient form of reversing the airflow in the throat and making sounds that represent the wind and tell stories and legends. And we would combine it with beatbox in hip hop. And it's now become a thing in the Arctic that's been credited with helping young people actually take an interest in the age-old thing of throat singing, so that it can be combined. This is graffiti art. There's maybe about 50 large graffiti murals all over the Arctic. So this is done in their own traditional language with syllabics. And you can see, they eat narwhal. So they did a stylistic graffiti art piece with narwhal. This is entirely the kids' messages and entirely their art. And then this one I love because it symbolizes so much, when you talk about the importance of reconnecting generations. This is a great grandma, and she knows nothing. She knows about records, but she knows nothing about DJ scratching. And so we'll get her up on the ones and twos on the turntables, and she's scratching the records to the delight of the entire community. And it shows that despite the age differences and the hurt and trauma between generations, people want to share laughter. Laughter is a really universal cultural healing tool. And so there's a great grandma doing some DJ scratching in the north. Small picture of, I love working with kids with disabilities. I've got an adult son with Down syndrome. He's actually part of our team now when we work at doing inner city work. But here's a little boy in a wheelchair. And when we did the big battle at the end, 50 kids against 50 kids in a dance battle, he had a leather strap and his little friend hooked his ankle in it, and he dragged him out with this powerful wheelchair, and he spun his wheelchair in a circle, and his little friend was getting whipped around the floor. And then his team came out and did jump rope over his friend that was getting spun around. And in terms of a routine, it brought the house down, and that little guy in the wheelchair won the battle for his entire crew with that little routine. So you can imagine how he felt and the spirit of empathy that would echo throughout the entire audience. I think we got one more picture. And then this would be like in Pond Inlet in the high Arctic. And I sometimes they would design a routine in a battle that might be a human dog sled with their bodies. And there's the old grizzled Inuit hunters in the back, and they don't really understand hip hop, but they understand a dog sled. And they're so happy. They're, sometimes I've seen elders openly sobbing with their chest heaving up and down when they're kind of looking and going, we got good kids. They haven't forgotten who they are. Look, they made a dog sled in hip hop, so it's really important to bring everybody together, celebrate their own culture as healing, and then use all those techniques in a creative way to do therapy in a way that doesn't create weird power dynamics like most of our systems do. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Steve. And you are blessed, certainly, to have your son in your life. And there's a possibility that Steve will be demonstrating his flash mob dance in Geneva at the WHO this coming June. Next up is Ashley. Ashley, most of the people on this call are from big cities or working in big cities. Ashley's village is 600 kilometers north of Sydney, 400 kilometers south of Brisbane, 500 kilometers east of nowhere, and 500 kilometers west of nowhere. So the project she's done in her small village is absolutely fantastic, which we can all learn from. Ashley, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Howard. That was a great introduction of where I live. So I am based on the east coast of Australia in a town called Coffs Harbour. So I work for the local council there, the Coffs Harbour City Council. So I work in a library, museum and gallery team, just to give you a bit of context. And my background's always been in the creative industries and working in community arts and community development and cultural development. So I'm just going to focus on one small project today that we did last year. And to give you a little bit of context around that project, it was with local primary schools in the region, and it was really responding to the bushfire season that we had in Australia. So I'm sure, as most of you know, Australia was hit hard by bushfires during that summer of 2019 and 2020. We had the most catastrophic bushfire season ever experienced in the country's history. So it was a really challenging time, and the East Coast was hit pretty hard. And in our region, we were bushfire affected, particularly in the outskirts of the region, where the surrounding areas of Coffs Harbour were evacuated. So, you know, at the peak of the fires, the focus was definitely on, you know, getting out those emergency support to frontline workers and organisations to support those communities. And, of course, rescuing and caring for the injured and fire-affected wildlife. And then, of course, the focus really shifted to the recovery stage, which is where I started working with our community recovery officer at the council, Melinda Brooks. So she was looking after the whole region in recovery, where I was really wanting to create a project that really focused on creative recovery and looking at how we could help support people, particularly children, in that recovery effort. So we really just developed a program focused on 3 small schools in the Arara Valley. So some of these schools were quite small, like one of the schools only had 12 students, another one had about 50, and I think the largest one, Nana Glen, had about 140 students. So quite small schools with different needs, but these schools were really important community bases for students during that time. So the fires really lasted days, if not you know, a week in one case. So students came to school not knowing who would be missing or why. There was heavy smoke, sirens, a constant dark sky, as well as, you know, that constant traffic of firefighting equipment. So schools became that vital way for children and families to connect with each other and really maintain that familiar routine, even though they were closed for a period. And some of those communities were evacuated a number of times. And of course, the project was affected by COVID as well. So it was pushed back a little bit, but we were really wanting to make sure that we were still committed to making sure those children had a creative recovery project. So we really split it into 3 main areas. The first one was going into the schools with elders. So I'm on Gumbaynggirr country here, and we went in with one of our Aboriginal elders, Uncle Mark Flanders. So Uncle Mark really focused on the cultural safety aspect of fire and really spoke a lot about cultural burning and just some of those really safe and positive elements of fire, whether that be, you know, cooking food or using a fire for warmth. So we really grounded the project in Aboriginal local knowledge, which was really evident in the children's artworks at the end of the project as well. And then the next stage of the project was with one of our art therapists locally here, Dr. Emma Gentle. So she went into each of the classrooms and worked with a maximum of 30 students over a couple of months, and she worked with 3 layers of safety. So she did portraiture with a lot of those kindergarten students, so looking at the self and our emotions and how we felt, you know, whether that was before, during or after the fires. And then secondly, she looked at the immediate community, so the people that were important to the students, as well as animals. There was a lot of focus on our native animals and a lot of concern for those animals from the students. And then lastly, just that the wider community. So about the services and technology that made students feel safe. So at the end of the sessions, Emma then held a circle to really share what the art making felt like for students, and that was really profound. That was a really powerful part of the project. And you could really see the energy that students had going into the classroom and the art making just really come down as they did discuss their feelings and share their artwork. So one of the most powerful things after the project was the exhibition that we had. And I've got a short video and some slides. Gareth, if you could bring that up, please. I'll share those with you now, because the artworks themselves were really profound, and the act of sharing them with the wider community was quite powerful. So we had a short exhibition for about 4 weeks in quite a public space, where the community were able to kind of bear witness to children's experiences, and we found that there was quite a powerful response to that, and a very emotional response from a lot of parents and grandparents of the students. I'm not sure if we can bring that video up now.
Just going to try now, hopefully.
I think that it's on the last slide there, Gareth, but there, yes, perfect, thanks.
Each other was very rich. And young people were asked how they felt about what had gone on for them during the fires. The idea was to get them to express how they felt visually with all these artworks that you can see here. We sat and had a discussion at the end of each art session about the art they'd made, the process they'd gone through whilst making the art, and how they felt about the finished artwork. Uncle Mark Flanders had gone in earlier, and he had taught them about Gumbaynggirr fire knowledge and around how the animals and the forest react to fire. So this sort of prepped them to be able to talk very openly about their experience during the fires. This gave all their peers a time to reflect on their own experiences and to share the experiences they've had with their classmates. Each of them had a huge story to tell, and all the stories were very different. So having their peers bearing witness to each other's stories had a huge impact. They seemed very confident to talk about how they felt, what had gone on for them, and the commonality of sharing that story with each other was very rich, and to be part of that and to bear witness with them was very powerful.
So thanks for that. I'm not sure if we had a few IT issues, but that video just really shows the exhibition component. So thank you for that. And I'll answer any questions later about that project. Thanks, Howard.
Thank you very much, Ashley. It's a beautiful, beautiful project. I'm pleased now to introduce Apenaki, who has been able to fuse her professional and personal life into her project. It's a very inspiring project, and I'm pleased to introduce Apenaki to you. You're muted, Apenaki.
Oh, hi everyone. Sorry about that. I'm Apenaki Timothayo Minerve, and I am a Trinidadian Canadian artist that is a mad artist. So I have lived experience with depression and PTSD, and I am also very much a member of Workman Arts, which I'll be discussing today, and the impact that it's had on the community, especially with artists with lived experience with mental health and addiction, and the initiatives that we continue to do within the community here in Toronto. So let me just get my slides up and ready. Just now, share my screen. Sorry. Alrighty. So can everyone see my screen?
Not at the moment. I can share my screen if you want.
Okay.
If it's
Please
easier.
do. Yeah,
There you
I
go.
think it's easier.
There you go.
Thank you.
You just tell me when you want me to scroll down.
All right, no problem. Thank you so much, Garrett. So Workman Arts has been a passion project of Lisa Brown, who is the founder. She started off as a nurse that was actually working at the Center of Addiction and Mental Health here in Toronto, and found that there needed to be an outlet for patients to actually be able to express themselves artistically within the ward. She found that a lot of the patients there had a lot of artistic skill that was not necessarily being channeled in a positive way. So this is where Workman Arts came into being. Thank you. So Workman Arts is a multidisciplinary arts organization that promotes and creates understanding of mental health and addiction issues through creation and presentation. So this could come in different forms. We actually happen to have projects like Art Cart, which is funded by the Donna Slade Foundation, and it is part of Gifts of Light, where we literally go in with a cart and bring art-based programming to patients on the wards. Workman Arts of itself gives free art-based programming to people who identify as having mental health and addiction. And that could span everything from visual arts to textile art to film. We also have a choir, the Brusiers Choir, all different aspects of art and artistic endeavor, and also professional development in exhibitions and also events and projects. What we do is that we do, as I said, free art training and courses in multiple disciplines. And we also do a Rendezvous with Madness Film Festival, which is a film festival that literally seeks projects that reflect mental health and the continued struggle and of course the exception of the mental health lens and mental illness lens and in viewing the world. We have Being Seen, which is an exhibition that is run. It's a juried exhibition where artists get to showcase everything from visual arts to sculpting to all kinds of varying ideas of visual arts, even quilting, as part of a juried exhibition. We have the Brusiers Choir, which actually has members from Workman Arts actually going out and doing amazing projects like the Invictus Games. And currently they're doing virtual choirs currently that you can access online. Workman Arts also does sales of artworks of the artists as part of part of Workman Arts, and also our Art Cart initiative at CAMH. We have over 425 artists currently. We have a sales and rental program that industrial corporations and stuff can access work for rent, which also they can also rent to own as well. So this is also inciting our membership in order to be able to continue their art practice and develop their art practice and be seen in the wider world. We have 400 free art training classes per year and countless hours of education as well. Can you go to the next slide, please? I can speak from my own personal journey that Workman Arts has definitely helped me develop as an artist. It gives us a safe space to build community, because we definitely have like minds in regards to our own struggles in regards to addiction and mental health. And in creating those community makes it even such a safe space for us to continue to create and continue to explore our artistic endeavors with the support of Workman Arts and their staff. Next slide, please. So the Rendezvous with Madness Film Festival is one of our key festivals that happens every year. We don't only have local artists showcasing their work on their particular lens in regards to their mental health journey, but it is also internationally acclaimed, where we also have international artists coming in and showcasing their films and their own mental health journeys and addiction journeys through their films. We have countless attendance. We have 5,000 attendees almost every year. We have 52 screenings and also co-presenters, and we showcase our work in 7 venues. What I love about the Rendezvous with Madness Film Festival, that it also gets to showcase some of our up-and-coming talent within the festival. We've had Mindful MCs, which is a young group of Workman Arts members who are actually doing rapping and speaking about their mental health journey within rap. We've had artists who showcase their singing talent, their art talent, like within live art presentations. And we have had a chance to really have an immersive experience when people come to the festivals. So they get a full experience of not only the films, but what the Workman Arts membership can actually offer in regards to their own talent. Being Seen exhibition this year was really poignant in that we had a special screening of Speaking Without Speaking, which was our interpretation of what 2020 actually affected us as artists, and showcase work around that theme. So Being Seen is already a highly anticipated event that happens every year through Workman Arts. And we have had a lot of artists get special acclaim through it, have had corporate sales through Being Seen. But really I'm hoping that everyone will get a chance to actually look into our virtual exhibition that we had this day, as we have adapted into new technologies in light of COVID, where we can now showcase our work virtually so it can be seen by the world. So I'm hoping that you all will be able to go and check out Being Seen 2021 this year. We also support opportunities for member scholarships and prizes. We do subsidies for the Bruisers Choir's performances. We have training program funds for instructors with lived experience like myself. I've worked as an instructor. And material fund for classes and workshops, so that we can really make this accessible. So regardless of where you are, we will be able to support you as mad artists or as an artist that struggles with addiction, in order to be able to access our programs. And all our programs are free. I wanted to also thank you for listening to exactly what Workman Arts is. I will be speaking later on about exactly how much it has changed my life, because it is such a profound program. I believe that we have also had satellite programs in places like Nunavut and and we intend to extend our programs out to the larger community for this year. Thankfully, we've gotten an influx of funding so that we'll be able to make things accessible. So, if hello, yeah. So, I'm hoping that our programs will be able to be more accessible worldwide as well as locally here in Toronto. So thanks again for listening to me, and I look forward to the question and answer period later on.
Thank you so much. That was a fabulous presentation and such a worthwhile project. I am pleased to introduce now my friend Olivier, who is an Ashoka Fellow and a global fellow in all senses of the word. He was born in Montreal, Canada. He is a Brazil Ashoka Fellow and now living in Europe. So he's able to scale and replicate his program globally. So avec plaisir, I introduce Olivier. Please unmute yourself, Olivier.
Bonjour, boa tarde, hello. So my name is Olivier Hugues Thérault. So I'm Canadian born, Québécois, and I lived also in Brazil. And now I am in Montpellier in southern France. So I'm a social entrepreneur and a therapeutic clown and a qualified Buddhist meditation teacher. I've been nominated as an Ashoka Fellow for my work around how to communicate with people with dementia. Bringing arts in the healing world has been a practice that goes way along in various cultures and has been an object of great development in the practice of modern medicine, supported by various research. Even if circus clowns have been documented visiting hospitalized children since the beginning of the 20th century, an ongoing practice of therapeutic clowning, so working together with healthcare team, has been introduced since 1986, simultaneously in both New York City by Michael Christensen and in Winnipeg, Canada by Karen Ridd. And both were not aware of each other. They were just spontaneous at the same time. And why clowns? Why am I bringing clowns to this discussion? The clown figure is understood as the archetype of resiliency. If you just look as Charles Chaplin, Buster Keaton, Laurel and Hardy, to name just a few of the iconic silent movies clowns, always getting themselves involved in the worst, but always reborn at the end of the movie. The clown is the artist of failure. This is our art. And in the context of hospitalized children, for example, it can bring to the child who is going through a failure, to his relative, to the whole medical team, a sense of how to live better with your own failures. Living in a healthy way with your own failure, in fact, it's a proof that you are resilient. So the presence of the clown in such context is helping with recovery from the hospitalization or with acceptance of the other avenues where life is taking us. How? Especially because the clown in the hospital setting might be the only person whose function is to actually ask the child for his or her help. The clown is not there to help the child, but to ask for help. So it totally switch the way the child will be conceiving himself or herself. Initially, therapeutic clowning was especially dedicated to the pediatric world. You can understand why. But through the work, especially of Magdalena Schamberger in Scotland, therapeutic clowning entered a whole new world in geriatric and especially dementia. Adapted to a more elegant, subtle, and old-fashioned culture. The clown, living so well with his failure, became quickly an amazing friend to the person living with dementia. And no problem with stumbling with words or memories or just picking up objects, for example. And so the clown and the person with dementia can meet and wander together, discovering their environment again and again. Why am I mentioning all this to you today? Two very important concepts, I understand, are working together into healthcare. Valuing quantity of life and valuing quality of life. And to promote both, a patient-centered care philosophy is gradually being introduced around the world since the 1960s. Healthcare environments are switching gradually from an institution to a more homey feeling to each patient. But while quantity of life is easily well quantified, how do we qualify then quality of life? It seems we would all have a very different take on what would be needed to feel a quality to our lives. And even so, as we evolve during our life, this seems to be constantly evolving also. So the question here is, what makes you feel your life as quality? And we've been contemplating this through social lab sessions. And we reached every time with kind of a universal conclusion that to say that our life has quality, whatever the circumstances, we need to feel that first, we are a resilient being. Second, that we are a compassionate being. And third, that we are a creative being. Someone with dementia is quickly considered as someone that is no more resilient. That, for example, we must now do everything for him or her, and so can no longer participate creatively to the well-being of his or her environment. We do not ask anymore as support from this person. And what happens is that gradually they go from different phases and finally naturally kind of shut down, becoming what appear as a living dead actually. While caring for a person, how do we help them developing a quality of life? Do we consider them, ourselves, as resilient beings, as compassionate beings, and as creative beings that we can trust as so? Do we have the courage to be vulnerable enough to put ourselves in a position where, while caring for them, we want them to care also for us, showing them concretely that for us, they are resilient, they are compassionate, they are creative people who are transforming us deeply because we allow it, because we want it, because we need it. Healthy vulnerability is an essential quality to be developed if we want to develop resiliency, compassion, and creativity. The art of failing and quality of life, they go hand in hand. Let me explain that. Without failing, how do we know we are actually resilient and we haven't just been lucky? Without failing, how do we know we are actually compassionate and we're not just helping others to boast our ego? And without failing, how do we know we are actually creative as we tried really something new and we're not just in fact repeating ourselves without knowing it? We are all confronted with failures from birth to death, and it can be our best friends if we want to develop quality of life, if we want to develop ourselves as resilient, compassionate, and creative beings. As dementia is now on the rise, so many people feel so helpless with what has been called by many as the living dead diagnostic. For the next 5, 10, or even 15 years, you will lose yourself. You will lose your parent. You will lose your loved one. as if the cognitive intelligence is what we mainly believe is defining ourselves in our modern societies. While cognitive and behavioral psychology has studied that cognitive intelligence cannot be much increased during our life. There are no incredibly significant growth in the IQ that is possible, while emotional intelligence can be developed during our whole life, which include during dementia. We can continue to develop our emotional intelligence. What is dementia? To summarize, to make it very, very simplified, sorry, it's something much more complex, but it is actually a plaque that creates an obstruction in our brain neuronic pathways. In life, when we hit a roadblock, what do? Oh, we all stop there and despair until we die. Or we do believe that we are resilient, and maybe we can dare looking for a detour or even create one. Why? Because we need to continue to make a difference in other people's life. When we identify ourselves, again, as a resilient, compassionate, and creative beings, we enjoy roadblocks because they bring us quality of life. People who feel challenged into identifying themselves as resilient, compassionate, and creative can become rigid, repetitive, developing predictable behavioral patterns, emotional patterns, and cognitive patterns. Like preferring just to do the same things over and over again, feeling the same ways over and over again, and thinking the same ways over and over again. So when hit with dementia, they quickly show the symptoms of dementia. Research proved that people who are identifying themselves as resilient, compassionate, and creative can have developed dementia, the plaques, but are not limited by its symptoms because they are creating detours. They're becoming creative, creating things that were not there before. New pathways. We can observe institutionalized people with dementia, for example. In the beginning, they seem just that they have difficulty to speak or to remember or to use other cognitive functions of their brain. For example, why only 10 minutes after listening to the music of their youth, we can observe that they can start to speak again, that they can actually remember again, that they can function again to a certain level. How is that possible? It seems magical. Simply, the music of their youth is so charged with so many affects, so many neural pathways are reaching these memories that they can let go of their most usually used pathways and access these capacities to speak or remember in other ways. In a nutshell, the more we are supported and challenged together, the more we are nurtured to build new pathways. So when caring for someone, we need to both support and challenge that person. The deepest way to do so is by asking them for their help. For us, we show them that we are vulnerable too, and that we trust them, that we need them, that they do help us to change for the better. Caring for someone with dementia is such a challenge, but a person with dementia can help also to care for us. But even better, they can help us to develop quality of life, to start seeing ourselves as resilient, compassionate, and creative through all the puzzles and challenges and roadblocks that it is to care for someone with dementia. You cannot force someone with dementia. You can only use collaborative leadership. It's such an amazing learning. That's why in Brazil, for example, we were taking executives working on empathy to come and simply meet old African descendant street woman now in institution with dementia so that they could learn to connect and learn about this collaborative leadership. So we don't see dementia as only a roadblock, but as a way to improve our quality of life. What do we do in essence in meditation, for my conclusion? We are changing our mindset about who we are and what we can and what we need to do. We can change our own inner narrative about ourselves. We are identifying ourselves to be a resilient, compassionate, and creative person. Through meditation, for example, we can simply observe and realize that our mind can never be broken by the experience of pain, that we are actually resilient, that there's nothing more empowering than the experience of care for the well-being of others, that we are actual compassionate beings, and that we are no set identities. Despite our usual way to grasp at ourselves, our mind creates all our experiences. We are actually creative beings. So now in Montpellier, the Kadampa Meditation Center, where I act as a resident teacher, has developed a partnership with the University Hospital of Montpellier, where we deliver medical meditation protocols to patients diagnosed with humor and emotion disorders, so such as bipolar and borderline syndrome. The results are astonishing, while the patients are gradually no more feeling limited by their disorders, by their traumas, but can appreciate the challenge to become a resilient, compassionate, and creative being, to create for themselves a quality of life that matters. Arts is a human activity that helps us to remind that we are resilient, that we are compassionate, and that we are, of course, creative. Art is definitely linked at the core of developing quality of life. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, Olivier. Simply wonderful. You know, I love the way your approach is not only holistic, but you're looking at the whole person. You're not looking at the disability of the person, and it's a two-way street. So congratulations on your work. I'm pleased now to introduce Dr. Bogan to you. Many of the projects you've heard earlier today sometimes start as a bottom-up approach from the community, to the professional level. Dr. Bogan is the reverse. He's taking his professional experience as a medical doctor and bringing it down to the community development. Dr. Bogan, please unmute your microphone and welcome to this presentation.
Thank you very much. It's such a pleasure to hear so many inspiring stories. Well, wish me luck, because following all of you will be definitely very tough. I've been inspired. I've taken lots of notes and quotes, and I'm going to use them and abuse them in my future presentations if you let me to do so. I'm from the National Academy of Social Prescribing, and our mission is to try and empower patients to live their best life on a daily basis. I'm going to try and convince you that my approach is also a bit of a bottom-up approach as well. And I'm going to convince you that I've also tried to to meet patients a bit in the middle in that kind of sense as well. I'm going to try and share my screen, first of all, and see if I can get my slides to work. 1 second. There we go. You should all be able to see my screen in a second. I'm just giving permission for this as well. There we go. Okay. Apologies, give me 1 second. I think it's just asking for permission to share my slides.
If you also want to share the slide with me, Bogdan, if you want to just email it to my desktop, I can put it up quick enough, just if there's a problem.
Yes, I've sent them in now. I think I'll try without slides. I think it's, or if you give me 1 second. Apologies, IT is not the greatest of things today, it looks like it.
Great, I've just got it. I think, if you send it to me. Here we go.
I'm trying to share mine as well, but it keeps losing. It doesn't allow me to use it. So Gareth, if you'd be able to share them, that would be great. But if not, don't worry, I can try and do this. I'm using 2 screens anyway as well. So first of all, once again, a pleasure to meet you all. So I've got a few different angles that I'll focus on and 3 different areas in here and a few short stories and projects really. So let me just first start with my first angle, which is really the power of art in healing, which you've all eloquently spoken about. And I think we all agree after seeing all your projects that it is indisputable. And let me say once and for all that medicine is not separate from art. Medicine is art. And I guess beyond inflammatory markers, MRI scans, neurotransmitters, and beyond all the science, medicine is art. The art of communication, the art of listening, empathy, just to name a few. And Hippocrates knew this thousands of years ago when he said that medicine shouldn't really be only for the inflamed body, but also for the inflamed soul. Now, and if we didn't believe him at the time, thousands of years ago, well, it took us a few thousands of years, but now we have the evidence too. And it's not just a bit of evidence, there's plenty of evidence, including the incredible work of Professor Daisy Francourt, Helen Chatterjee and colleagues at UCL, who demonstrated that that museum attendance is inversely associated with dementia over a 10-year period of time. Research has shown that creative activities can relieve stress, aid communication, and help stop cognitive decline. And because I know all that, I've tried to use it time and time again to help my patients, but also myself. So if we leave the slides for a second, I think they all had prompts that I would have to click on them. And if they're not in full screen, I don't think we'll be able to get through all those things anyway. But if you focus a bit on the talk.
We've lost you, Bogdan, have we?
Less likely to suffer from chronic pain too. So being less likely to develop dementia and depression as well, even when controlled for co-founding factors such as economic circumstances, job status, and educational background and physical levels, physical activity levels too. The truth is that the art does something that medicine will never be able to. It allows patients to feel empowered and to be part of the process themselves, and to find solutions and coping mechanisms for an enriching life. What we've done is that we've created an art-based mindfulness kit, and we've developed this online tool during COVID-19 when we've heard that there's no access to art in the community, but also among students and amongst the elderly who are isolated within the community. And we created some videos that people could use on their own at home and to do mindfulness and to reflect on this on their own at home. And the comments on this really reflected that they felt rejuvenated upon trying our art-based mindfulness exercise. And I will provide some links on how you can find this as well. But we all knew about this evidence. We all knew all about what art can provide and what can help us with. So why aren't we using it more often, I guess? Well, this touches upon my second point, which is about education and its role in reshaping the values and perceptions of the future generations. So now that you know a bit about the evidence and the science behind, which I'm sure you all already knew about, let me tell you a bit more about what the lack of art can lead to. And let me showcase the power of art in education. One day when I was 13 years old, my mother got home and she slammed the door behind her. She had tears rolling down her face. She locked herself in a room, and all I could hear was, I don't want to go. I don't want to see, I just want to see you growing up. I found that day that my mother was really diagnosed with metastatic melanoma with a poor prognosis. And let me clarify, this whole story here is not about the diagnosis with the poor prognosis. It's not really the diagnosis itself, but it's the way in which the news were delivered to the patient. And no invitation for my father to join, no time to allow her to process the information, and no offer for support and no understanding. Truthfully, no empathy, no compassion in that sense. And why did this happen? because that's what we're trying to do. That's what doctors are trained to do, right? We live in busy hospitals. We are asked to get through forms, to order tests, examinations, and clinical procedures. We're asked to see patients in 10-minute slots and get things done and to be efficient. So is the doctor who delivered the diagnosis to my mother to be blamed? No. The way in which we teach our doctors and students is that we forget that we're dealing with people, and the way in which we teach our doctors and students is to be blamed. This was my motivation for going into medical school. I worked with over 60 patients to develop a book in medical school on addressing the elephant in the room, a book filled with stories, paintings, poems, and art from those going through the process themselves. I used it as an opportunity to prevent what doctors and medical students refer to as empathy erosion over time. And with support from various organizations, including Arts for Dementia, Dance for Health, we offered placements to students where they can witness and understand the full power of art and how this can help us maintain compassion and empathy above all. Hamad is one of our students doing neuroscience, and his quote truly illustrated what he felt. And I'll share this with you on the chat once again, and I do apologize due to the lack of slides as well. And I'm going to end with the final dimension. I'm going to end a bit by focusing on a final part, talking a bit about the connection and identity that art provides, which you've all already spoken about. With COVID-19 in full swing earlier this year, I'm sure we have all asked ourselves at one point in life, when the world is burning, is art really worth it? Is it really worth thinking about doing such bigger problems as you'd consider them? Well, when my mother couldn't find words, because as we all know, often the perfect words do not exist. And when we don't know what to say to our loved ones, what do? Well, we say nothing at all. And so this estranges us even further from each other and from our families even further. So when my mother didn't know what to say, she used to draw and paint. And believe me, she's no Picasso of that sort. And I also just wanted to clarify that she's still around, and the diagnosis that she received, she managed to get over the past few years in that sense. Almost all of the cancer patients we interviewed did the same. It helped them connect with their loved ones and tackle a taboo subject, and they addressed that elephant in the room. So beyond healing and education, art really means to me, and what it really does is that it helps us connect us all, and not only with others, but with our true self, helping us understand and deal with emotions that would otherwise feel overwhelming. During the pandemic, art connected millions. Virtual galleries, museums, art kits sent to patients at home, Zoom classes, singing for the health of our lungs, you name it. And when the world is burning, and when the world was burning now during COVID-19, I guess art kept us all connected and provided shelter for all of us. It provided hope, you could say, for better days. And art has been with us for thousands of years. It has and is contributing to our well-being. And we have a shared responsibility to make the art a bigger part of our lives and empower others to do so, especially in low-income countries and settings. It's a pleasure once again to be here with you, and I do apologize for the technical issues. I wish I could share with you some slides and do this the proper way, but those are my thoughts there, and I'll post some links on the chat as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bogan. Your social, emotional, medical approach is truly breathtaking and fantastic. Congratulations. It is my honor now to introduce Ingolf to you. I read his biography. It's truly inspiring, and I'm excited to hear how he talks about the risky challenges he's taken in his life. Dr. Ingolf?
It's great to be here. I'm not a doctor, but a pianist. So I'm a classical pianist, composer, and conductor, and I performed in over 50 countries, from Carnegie Hall to Moscow Conservatory in my life so far. And my wife, Paulina Wunder, who not only lives life with me, but also starts all the startups with me and travels with me. We saw in all these 50 countries that we have been visiting that the state of music education is truly horrific, actually, to be frank. So we have two states. Either music education has no place at all and isn't existing, or where it's existing, in most of the cases, it's simply not good enough. So we were thinking what we can do, because if you know the problem and you don't do anything, you make yourself guilty also. So we started 2 startups and more to come, all with the same mission of propagating and making music education better. Why, you might ask? And the reason is simply that we are all frequency, as most of you will absolutely agree, I guess. It's all about energy and frequency. And with music, and with valuable music, you can push the buttons in the brain and control the chemicals as you wish. It's almost like a computer. So the training and musical interaction is of greatest importance, not only for our creative development, but also our health. And this is why we are honored to also work together with Gareth in this sense, to combine our musical knowledge and musical activities with the health sector. So we have these 2 missions that we work hard, first of all, to increase the value in music. Many of you will not be aware what I mean by value, but I'm talking about the highest level of musical quality, both in composition and in interpretation. And I'm convinced that in these micro changes that decides whether a musical composition, for example, works or doesn't, on this level, many things in our bodies are decided. How we work and how creative we are, how healthy we are at the end. So these 2 missions, so at some point, hopefully up the value of music in the world, is the one thing. And the second thing, which is of course totally interconnected, is making the quality of music education better. The awareness of what music actually does with our brains, with our body, and with us. So we have, as Gareth will show, we have several startups. One is Appassimo and Appassio. These are daughter applications, one for institutions and one for C2C, so user to user. They are designed to make possible quality music education no matter where you live, because that's the point. We have loads of talented teachers still on this planet, and obviously loads of talented student material, but the problem is that these don't find each other, or the right people and the right patterns don't match. And this we want to speed up and make better with these 2 startups. Then we started the SDG Youth Orchestra with UNGSII and 25+5 with Roland Schatz and also Gareth is involved, where we selected, so currently we have 55 musicians out of 14 countries and growing. We select musicians not only with their talent or how good they are on the instrument, but actually how willing they are to change the world, or how much energy they have besides their musical knowledge to actually impact their peers and impact, at the end of the day, hopefully the adults. Because music is about energy, and it's about getting the musicality back into music. This is what this orchestra is about, and actually what my life is about, because many people think if you can play quick notes on any instrument, you are a good musician. Au contraire, absolutely not. Music is not how good technically you are on an instrument. It's the energy you can create with the combinations of harmony, rhythm, and ultimately the music you play. It's all about expressions. And in this micro level, there's so much space that people don't tap into at all, also in healthcare. Long story short, it's our work is the bottom line of our work is to make people aware of how important valuable music is, what value of music actually is, and make people aware of how good they feel, how the brain goes into hyperaction if you listen to music that is done right. And I'm even talking about such a level that a great composition of Beethoven, Mozart, or whatever you name it, done the wrong way doesn't do anything to us, and done the right way does everything to us. And it's about making people understand why that is and enjoy the outcome. And yes, so I don't, this is a long webinar, and I'm so happy that we all find each other here, but I don't want to bore you. So I think the most important thing is, as Gareth shows some links, please feel free to look into our work, to Google or to YouTube my TEDx talk that I gave on value of music. And I hope in the future we can all work together and go from talking to action, because that's the most important thing. In my TED talk, I also talk about that in music especially, but as in life. Many people say the right things, but don't follow up with actual actions. And so that's why it's so inspiring to be amongst people who actually change that. So I'm looking forward to the future, and I'm looking forward to working with you guys.
Thanks, Ingolf.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Let me turn it back to Isabel, who has some questions for the people.
Thank you so much for all your amazing description of each of your initiative. It's so beautiful and so inspiring, and I think it is really what we need as a collective intelligence, system for the future, and to be sure we will find the curve, positive curve for well-being. And I will use this opportunity to ask you some question and to know more, about your personal experience specifically. And the first question, it will be, what really you have feel, what have been, as well the impact of what you have done, in fact, in your life. Okay, I will start with this first question, and quickly we will do a tour of all of you, and I will continue with other question after your answer. Maybe we can start, in fact, with Apanaki, please.
Thank you so much, Isabel. I can safely say that art has impacted my life in such a positive way. Actually, I got into art due to working on my own personal trauma, and was then given the opportunity to find out about Workman Arts. I entered Workman Arts as a writer. I have been writing for over 20 years by that time, and literally got exposed to all these art-based programs for free that actually were not about writing. I ended up doing a couple visual arts programs, and in so found a love for this new way of expressing myself artistically, and then decided to incorporate my love of African textiles in my work. And in so doing, entered an open call at Being Seen, actually, that I noted earlier, and actually got one of my pieces accepted into an exhibition in 2012. And literally that started my artistic journey. So I can safely say that art in itself is also a medium for my expression, but it is also a way for me to help channel anything that I'm going through mentally at the time. So literally I use that medium in order to channel my mental health struggles within my artwork. So, and even in the use of the bright colors of African fabric is also one of the things that actually brings me joy. And that is why I also incorporate it into my artwork. So in turn, I am not only the artist, but I'm also benefiting from creating the art and sharing that art as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Apanaki, for this amazing, effect. You have described that so well, the effect on yourself. And Stephen, you can explain as well to us how art have impacted your life. You have described already a little bit, but we want to know more, more deep.
Thanks, Isabel. For me, probably the biggest thing is that my whole life as a dancer has been one of healing. And, art has helped me keep on that path, and it's a never ending struggle. Anger has been my single biggest issue in my life, in my relationship with my wife, my children, with other people. And anger, I don't want to die that man, where anger defines you. And so reconfiguring, healing, and managing anger in a different way has been crucial. And it's interesting in hip hop because all the OGs and the originators and the different elements of art and rap and poetry and DJing, if you talk to what drew us all to it, it was the need to heal. And so much trauma happened in the South Bronx and in communities, and it's still happening worldwide. People being raised with without fathers in their lives, and when crack cocaine hit the streets and gang involvement. And so for me, hip hop was a survival mechanism that actually grew out of the streets. That's what's so beautiful about it. It wasn't social workers that came up with this creative idea. It was just like humanity saying, enough of this shit. We're gonna come up with our own survival stuff, and now it gets co-opted by capitalism, and there are problems with it. But I love the fact that on a deeply personal level, it's helped me heal. And I love the fact that it's helped my teams heal. All my teams have the same kind of hurt that I have, maybe some different specific trauma, but to see them now grow and choose social work as a field in their lives, or choose to work with gang kids over their involvement in the work that we do. The other thing is I'm really interested. It's opened my eyes and deepened my understanding about power and control and healing. And I'm also part of a international well-being group organized through Ashoka. And we're at the stage where we're examining, okay, so it does some amazing stuff for us personally, but how can we transcend this to real well-being in organizations? And this is a tricky thing, it has to go way beyond just having an ongoing counseling service. How do we change the systematic structure within organizations to embrace well-being and healing? And the arts and nature and the environment are all such huge parts of this. So I'm excited that that this continues to grow. There's a new concern that we need new paradigms on this, and we need to rethink medical models and stuff. So it's an ongoing journey. I feel like an old breakdancer sometimes, but my passion and the sparkle in my eye is still there because it rings true in my heart,
Thank you so much, Stephen. And now I propose to hear Ashley about how art have impacted your life, Ashley.
I think art has had a huge impact on my life, obviously with the direction and the projects that I've begun to coordinate in the last 10 years. I think that it's really interesting as well to kind of think about the way art has not only impacted my life as an artist and that kind of work in terms of, expressing yourself and finding a language to express yourself in visually. But I think what is also really important is that kind of that witnessing. So, seeing other works of art and having that really kind of change your perspective, or it's almost like a very quiet way to really consider another perspective and kind of consider what somebody else is trying to express. And I think that in community art, that's especially powerful, especially when you're witnessing the artwork of communities that don't often have a voice or have a platform. It's incredibly powerful, and it's definitely had a huge impact on my life, and I really hope that others experience that same impact.
Thank you, Ashley. And now I would like to give the floor to Olivier to tell us more personally the impact of art in your life.
Oh, I will mention my relationship with clowning. I was just enjoying the freedom that clowning was offering me, just to be able to kind of feel that I can just play and just be in a state of wonder. And I was initially so attached to giving an image of just something very angelic, very pure, kind of the purity of a child discovering through the figure of clowning. And I was just hiding the core of what clowning could allow me, is to really just look at my failures, at my anger, at my emotional dependency, at my pride, and just clown it. And so people can just relate so much. And then it became just so clear to be able to show myself in such a state, but of course in a playful mode of the clown, but in context of vulnerability, such as in the hospital ward with people with dementia, or when I was in the favelas in Brazil and so on. And so people can just so relax and embrace their own shadows, because the art of clowning is actually just putting the light on the shadows and making them dance. And it was such a relief for me. And I can see how it is such a relief for the people who can enjoy my clowning.
Thank you so much, Olivier. I think we are we have soon we will finish very soon. And first, I would like to thank all of you for this amazing, in fact, first webinar, because the idea it is to do a beautiful series, and to identify through this incredible, I will say more than social movement, but what I will call creative design movement over the world, to know other art initiative in the world, like you have described yours. And the idea it is really to interconnect each other, because it's so beautiful, amazing initiative. And as you know, we don't know. And the idea it is really to have the opportunity to interconnect all this initiative together. And for that, I have been able with all of you to be inspired to set up this platform, and soon we will be able to have a digital platform as well. And I would like to, of course, invite you for the next international art exhibit we will perform with all the partners in June in United Nations Palais. And it will be about the topic of resilience, the topic we have addressed today in such a beautiful way, with such beautiful testimonies. And as well, the idea in the art exhibit in June, it is to showcase the beauty of your art, in real, in this real event. Donc I would like to really encourage all of you, to continue what you are doing, because it's extraordinary. And to join each of our next webinar. We will have one webinar as well the 8th May, to know more about other art and program initiative worldwide, and as well to rejoin us, as I have mentioned, for this international art exhibit in June, and it will be between 15 June to 9 July, and I looking forward to welcoming all of you and to continue this work together. Just the beginning of extraordinary creative adventure. And I will just give the floor to Howard and Gareth if they want to add something to my word. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Isabel, for letting me participate in your fantastic Congress. I've learned a lot. Let's do the speakers. All I can say is I'm honored to walk on the planet at the same time as they do. So thank you all. Gareth?
Thanks, Howard. I've been sitting in the background just in awe. I've just been really able to relate to everything you've spoke about. Oliver's talk with the clowns, not only dementia, but also children's pediatric cancer. And, I've witnessed it myself, the huge impact that, this social interaction can have with the arts and its impact on people's health and well-being. And I think we need to look at the opportunity here. Excuse me. And there's a huge opportunity in the future for the arts, particularly if you look at the health service and the pressures that it's under. And how do we create new and meaningful jobs in the future that support people's health and well-being? How do we get into that value proposition towards, leveraging investments into this space? Well, that's exactly what the World Health Innovation Summit was set up to do, to create a methodology and a model that would support people's health and well-being. SDG3 Good Health and Wellbeing, bringing patients, clinicians, managers, voluntary sector, education, and the business community together to create that value. And we know just from the examples that each and every one of you have given, the immense value that is created within our communities and within our societies by these actions. And now is the time to put together, we don't necessarily need the evidence because we have the evidence. We have demonstrated £1 invested, 36 back is the return. So there's your opportunity. We have a global platform. We have the global partners through the WHO, through the UNGSII Foundation, through the National Academy of Social Prescribing. With our partners, we're working with the NHS leadership teams and so on and so forth. So we have a massive opportunity here to look at how do we implement the SDGs through the arts, create new and meaningful jobs while we support and strengthen our current health systems. So it's about time that we started to bring this together, and it's a credit to everyone today for speaking. I myself work closely with Isabel and Howard will be presenting this work in some capacity at the G20 in May this year in Berlin. And I'm very much looking forward to the future and working together with our colleagues here in the arts. So do stay tuned. I'm going to close it here with this final piece. And I just want to say thanks to all our speakers and thanks to everyone who's tuned in. This will be available to watch on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and also we'll soon have it out as a podcast. So final word is just the very best of luck and enjoy the weekend. So thanks everyone, and we'll close the session.